Chris, under the circumstances, it's nice to have a new face in the Twin Cities for news. Share a little bit about the differences in the different cities you've done as to how news is covered. Obviously, in the Dakotas, it would be different, being maybe more, and not to knock the Dakotas, but a more rural area, as opposed to, say, Orlando and then Seattle and here. Is news covered differently in those different parts of the country, would you say?
Well, a lot of the South Dakota experience is it's a smaller newsroom, it's a smaller staff, so you're just not cranking out as much news content. There's a lot of agriculture stories. In western South Dakota, it was mining and tourism on the Black Hills. There are a lot of that kind of stories that went on there. Omaha, again, somewhat rural focused, but not really. I mean, Omaha's a big city and it's got big city problems, and so that was my first real kind of taste of, covering shootings and covering. I covered a big murder trial in South Dakota. Murders don't happen very often there, and I covered it for almost a month.
Oh wow!
And every day. So I don't want to say that stuff doesn't happen there, but I definitely got more of a taste of that in Omaha, and then Orlando, which is a beautiful place, and it's very tourist driven. So you're doing a lot of stories about the mouse, and you're doing Mickey Mouse. You're doing a lot of Disney. You're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. But that's Orlando's. It was also turned out to be could be a fairly gritty place. And so there are, again, a lot more experiences there to do kind of crime type stories, and then the weather there, that wasn't weather became a, we've got 3 hurricanes that one year, and then the next year we had a couple of, so that was, being in Florida was a whole different thing as far as like weather coverage. And I think somewhere in the last, I think I've been doing this 17 years now, around there. Somewhere in the last decade, give or take, I feel like stations have really tried to differentiate themselves and take ownership in weather coverage too. And you see a lot more focus. Not that the weather person itself has always been an important part of but to bring the news team into the weather coverage itself. So I really kind of got part of that in Orlando.
Okay. And
then same kind of thing in Seattle. I know everyone's, well, it just rains all the time in Seattle, which is true, but they get a lot of big windstorms that come off the Pacific, and so there's a lot of that happened out in Seattle too. Seattle coverage was a little less friendly and a little more business-like.
Okay.
So, there wasn't, when we were on the anchor desk, there wasn't a lot of chit-chat or happy talk, or, we sat down and we did the job.
Yeah.
And so it was, in fact, now that I'm here, the news director is asking me to kind of try to get a little less out of that role and get back into being a Midwesterner again. So, in fact, just in the newsroom a couple minutes ago, she goes, "You got to smile more." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll smile more." So.
Now, I understand you were part in Washington of a series shooting, like three or four individuals were in this large event that you covered, I guess, for a few days. One of your Twitter friends in Seattle said to ask you about that and what that experience was like for you.
I think what he's referring to is there was a police. There were 4 Lakewood police officers who were shot and killed, and a guy walks into a coffee shop and they're just sitting around.
I think they're
working on their laptops, and the guy kills all of them and was on the run for several days. And we went, our news coverage was, it was a big deal, and we were on the air a lot.
Okay.
And, we were breaking into coverage a lot, and we were going into breaking news mode a lot. So, the great thing about that TV station is the field crews and the assignment desk and the producers and everyone were so mobilized, and helicopter, and we had all this stuff going on, but everyone was, boom, they were going to each aspect of it, and I got to be on the anchor desk for a majority of what was going on with that.
Okay.
And it's times like that when your job is really important, and not to say it's not important every day, but when when there's somebody like that who's on the loose and nobody really knew what he was capable of.
Right.
So I think that's what
A loose cannon.
Yeah, I think that's what that Twitter follower was referring to. So, and
Okay.
I think I earned his respect during that run, because I've heard from him ever since quite a lot. So.
When you're covering a story like that, and there's breaking news that happens in Minnesota too, is your adrenaline and a lot of your skills kick in or amp up more because it's such an intense story? And is it hard to maintain that, to keep the viewers interested but not wear yourself out from just pushing in a sense?
Well, part of that.
Some of it's obviously natural.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that changes too the older you get. And I'm not a veteran by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm 38. I'm a dad. I think the older you get, you can bring more of your perspective to it, so, and a calm to it, where you think of Peter Jennings on 9/11. It's a perfect case in point. I'm sure he was excited, and I'm sure he was nervous, and I'm sure he was everything that all Americans were, but he remained calm. He remained in control of the situation and didn't panic or. So I think with age and experience, you get to a point where you can sort of, and I think that's what people look for their anchor people to do. Yeah. I mean, Walter Cronkite, and they look for them to set the tone and look for them for reassurance. And when something big like that happens, I don't think people want to turn the TV on and see their news people panicking. I mean, that doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
So.